Hey folks, little review here for a recent ghost tour I went on. This was with American Ghost Adventures in Orlando, Florida. The tour was April 5th, maybe 8 p.m.-ish, and it cost $35 each. So a little bit on the pricier side for these walking tours, but I have to say I was really happy with the experience, and I would definitely recommend this tour to other people. Let's talk a little bit about it. So this was in Orlando, Florida, so the temperature was really nice, but it did get dark pretty fast, and the neighborhood was definitely not the nicest place, I would say. I definitely felt that there was a lot of, well, I at one point I stepped in human feces, so that's a good hint. And then at another time we had some person who had something wrong with them come up to our tour guide, and he was like, "Oh, you're a ghost tour? Well, I got a spirit inside of me. What am I going to do about that?" So that heightened the experience in some ways, but it was mostly scary. It was a little bit, annoying, I think, to deal with somebody like that. So our guide did a good job of handling that, but I think this particular area has a lot of walking specters, some interesting people who you're going to want to avoid. It's not the nicest area. There's a lot of homeless in this situation. But yeah, our tour guide handled that fairly well. This tour guide was his name's Chris, and he said, this was only his first year running the tour, even though this tour had been around for maybe 16 years, which is pretty awesome. In fact, they said it won the top 10 award for all of the ghost tours in the world, or something like that, from TripAdvisor. I looked it up. I wasn't able to verify that, but I think that's pretty impressive, and I did book it through TripAdvisor. So it was great to chat with this person, clearly somebody who was really passionate about the ghost hunting industry, ghost research industry, and had done a lot of, overnight stays and research before on the topics, which is something I always love. Whenever you're doing something like this, you want to get somebody who's as involved in the fiction or in the that world as possible, whether you believe it or not, right? A lot of fun little stories there, mostly speaking about ghosts who just needed to know the people's intentions. There was some imagery that resonated with me. One was that they were changing a lot to the house. They were doing some construction, and there was ghost activity. But what they did was they said, you know what? They called in this lady, the woman who's like the founder of this company. She's like the ghost expert. And, there's all this ruckus going on in the house. And so they're like, what could we do? And so she comes in and she's like, at the end of each day, I want you to take the blueprints for the house you're building and roll them out on the table. And they did that, and it solved the problem, So presumably, the ghosts knew what was going on a little bit. And so if you explained it to them, that would help them out. Another thing they did was there was these kid ghosts who were, of course, the creepiest kind of ghosts, I would say. And they just left out some cupcakes at the end of the day in the bakery, and that made the kid ghost go away. So maybe you got to give them some cupcakes or something. I don't know. Just some fun ideas there. The tour did not have any supporting media, which was really a bummer. Particularly because they do have a YouTube channel. It's a pretty small YouTube channel, but they've got some videos of some of the orbs and stuff. And, it's horrible if you're on a tour and they're like, actually, we have video footage of this event. And you're like, well, where's the video footage? And they're like, oh, it's somewhere on our YouTube. Give me a break, man, That's just unacceptable at this point in time, right? The best tours I've been on, what are they doing? They're whipping out the iPad, and they're passing it around to people. They're pulling up the video, and they're saying, hey, check out this tour. Especially because a lot of people are there for the historical value, and there's nothing better than going to a building and saying, this is what the building looks like now, and then you pull up the video or the old photo, and it's like, this is what the building looked like in the 1800s. And so you get the side-by-side view. They even have those things where you can, I don't know if you've seen this, but you can drag a line across the screen, and it will switch. On the left is the old version, the right is the new version, and you can kind of drag it to see how it's changed over time, where it's like perfectly lined up with the two versions. Those look great. I love those. Yeah, this tour had nothing of the sort. It was all vocal. And that's a little bit of a bummer. I would have loved to see the iPad support there for any transmedia stuff. If you've got a video of an orb or something like that, you want to show it. Or if it's just a photo, print it out, laminate it, and hand it out to the guests. You know, that's what I've come to expect from Tor. So I was disappointed not to see that here. A little bit about ghost education, which is always good. He talked about the difference between residual haunts, which sort of are the same thing that plays out again and again, sort of regardless of the people who are there to witness it. The second is intelligent haunts, where they're sort of responding to people who are interacting with the environment. And then the third would be an object haunt, this idea that an object is haunted and weird stuff happens about it, you know, around the people who interact with it. So I think that's all very interesting. It would seem that whenever I do the ghost education portion of these tours, and I've done maybe a dozen tours at this point, everybody disagrees on this stuff, right? So like you're learning each person's new perspective on some of this stuff, and I think that's all good and great. I love that. Some really good, some really nice spooky stories. Not too many standouts with respect to real scary stuff, but there was one I thought I enjoyed very much, which was this haunted table that this guy had picked up at some secondhand furniture store. And when he brought it into his house, he would hear footsteps. And on this particular night, he heard footsteps walk all the way up to his door, and he could see almost like a shadow figure on the other side of his door. Him and his wife were like service members, so they pulled out their pistols and aimed them at the door, but there was no one there. So I love that story. That one resonated with me. I thought it was fun. And then the guy just talked a little bit about some of his influences. He recommended Taps, the TV show, as well as he said he was a big fan of Fox Mulder, who's apparently a character from the X-Files, in case you're a fan of that show as well. And one of the things I really liked about this tour, I thought it would be great to integrate it to other ones, was a little bit of trivia. So he would ask a question about, this one had to do with a famous serial killer who was tried in this area. And he's like, who do you think it was? And it turns out it was Ted Bundy. So that was kind of fun. And I think this idea of a little bit of a quick quiz show or a little quick trivia question here and there is actually really well adapted for the walking tour, particularly with a wide audience. So I would love to see more of that. I think it's a great opportunity there to further investigate, what does that user interaction look like within the tour framework. Some fun stuff about the history of the town name, Orlando, apparently from the Shakespearean play called As You Like It. What else? What is the standout of this tour? The reason why this tour is getting 5 stars for me is because they handed me a K2 meter. That was awesome. That has never happened to me on a tour before. I think it's incredible. I've been on tours where you have to pay to take dowsing rods, or you have to pay a little bit extra, $5 or some bullshit, in order to walk around with a K2 meter. But that was not the case for these folks. They handed them out, and they were like, hey, everybody gets to try it out and experience this. And I thought that was awesome. So would love to see that in more tours. Really great note there. Talked a little bit about John and Elaine Warren. Those are the people of Annabelle fame. Always an exciting thing to hear about those folks. I'm not too familiar with their story, so I'd like to do some more research there. And then we got to use the dowsing rods at the end. So it was a little anticlimactic conclusion. I think the best tours are the ones where you could start on a really strong story, which was the case here, and then the last story sort of connects the dots. And the really tough thing about these walking tours is it often will seem like a potpourri of just random little stories, and wrapping them together into a coherent narrative that is well pathed, meaning, you got to add some sense to why you're going here first and then this place and then that place. Why not cover it in any other order? Obviously, you're geographically bound. You can't go to one place that's a mile away before you hit the one that's right next to you. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of storycraft that can go into making the story feel coherent. Even if it's different elements, it's all within the same town, the same village, the same city, maybe same person pops up in certain stories. There's a lot of ways to bring the stories together, and I feel like that was not happening on this tour. They didn't really have a strong glue to stick it all together. And then the dowsing rods at the end were they're okay. I don't know if you're a big fan of dowsing rods. I think you'll enjoy that part. I don't get as much out of it, but I did get to try it out, explore it a little bit, and hey, it's always great to be working with the stuff and to experience what that's like. So I had a fun time nonetheless. I would totally recommend this tour. Thought it was very strong. I don't know what else Orlando has to offer with respect to ghost and ghouls and the undead supernatural stuff, but I thought this tour was a pretty strong contender and definitely one of the top 10 tours I've been on in the ghost walking tour subgenre, and a 5-star experience at that. So thank you so much for the Adventure Ghost Tour, folks. And if you check out this tour, let me know in the description what you thought about it, because I'm always excited to hear what you, what you saw, maybe something I skipped out on or overlooked. Would love to hear. All right, cheers, good luck, and stay away from those ghosts.